Hey Lion, hi folks, it's Lev. Welcome back to another video. For those of you who are new, I use him pronouns. I am 1 week sleep deprived from circumstance, so if I'm a bit nonsensical in this video, it's because I'm sleep deprived, and when I'm sleep deprived, my brain doesn't function as well. But nonetheless, I do not want to wait until I finish this little nightmare until I film video. So today's a little story time and my reflections on the experience and whatnot, because I like reflecting upon things. If you don't know that about me already, I love reflecting about things. And yeah, I'm gonna break this down into a little segment again. It just helps with video. How do I explain this? It helps with keeping track with the video in a way, and dividing the video. Chapter 1 is the story of what happened. So on Monday, but by the time I film this video, it'll be like later, but on Monday, I accidentally cut my foot on the base of a steel fan at home. So the fan at my house, like the base of it is steel, and the little black rubber thing that goes around the base, it's like circular. I'll put a photo for you actually. The rubber protective covering had come off it, and I was lifting the fan and rotating it, and then I didn't lift it high enough. I was rotating it, and I'm like, and then like 2 seconds later, I'm like, why is my foot wet? Because I wear slippers at home, And I'm like, why is my foot wet? And I'm like, where? There's no water. And I look down, and there's like a pool of blood that started leaking, like started forming underneath my foot because I was wearing slippers. I cut my foot, like the tip of my foot, and then blood was starting to come out a lot, and I'm like, oh, I'm bleeding. I didn't actually freak. I'm like, oh, what the hell? And then I sat down, and then I'm like, at first in my head, I'm like, tissues. And I yelled to my family to get me tissues. And I'm like, and then 10 seconds later, I'm like, no, wait, shit. Tissues are gonna stick onto my foot, into the wound. I have gauze. I still have gauze from when I got top surgery. Get gauze. So I told my family to get me gauze. And then my head at that point in time was, stop the bleeding. If the bleeding doesn't stop and if I've actually hit a blood vessel, I'm calling the ambulance. So I was holding my foot there for like 10-15 minutes, and the bleeding subsided, which is good. And then that was when I got the first look at the cut, because initially it was just blood everywhere around it, and I couldn't actually see how bad it was. It was pretty bad because I was bleeding a lot, but I didn't see how bad it was truly until after the bleeding sort of stopped for a little bit. It was still bleeding, but it wasn't like pools of blood bleeding. And then I'm like, oh well shit. Well shit. And it's just sort of funny looking back that I didn't know from the pain of being cut, because I didn't feel it. When I got cut, it's like I didn't cut my foot and then immediately feel like sharp pain, be like, ow, what the hell? It was more like I realized I was cut from my foot being wet from blood, not from the actual pain, because I didn't actually get pain when it was cut. It was funny, I don't know, it's weird. So that happened, and then I'm like, well, this is deep, and then I went to emergency to get it stitched up. And when the doctor was stitching it up, and the nurse who was like helping the doctor saw me look at them do it. Like I was looking at them clean it, I was looking at them putting anesthetic in, like there was local. This is the first time I've ever gotten a cut where I needed a stitch, so it was all very interesting to me. First they clean it with anesthetic, some antiseptic liquid. That hurt like a bastard. And then they numb the nerves in that area of my foot through local anesthetic, jab the needle in, and then jab the needle on one side of the cut, like the skin surrounding the cut, not into the cut, and then like injected some anesthetic, and then move the needle to underneath the skin to the other side of the cut, underneath, like it's underneath the cut, under my skin, and then anesthetic, I put anesthetic in, and then was stitching it up, and then I don't remember whether it was the nurse or the doctor, and was asking me, aren't you scared? And I'm like, no, this is very fascinating to me. I don't know if they felt uncomfortable because I wasn't scared at all, and I was just like staring at them do the procedure. I was just like staring at my foot. Like, I didn't just lie back and just like, I was lying down. I didn't lie back and just stare at the ceiling. I was actually looking up and like, oh, fascinating. And then I was just like stitching it. And I was watching them stitch it. And I was like, fascinating. This is how you stitch up a wound. Probably because I want to do paramedicine too. And I find this stuff very fascinating. Fun fact, the suture needles aren't straight. Like, you know, I don't know if you know, but sewing needles for like clothes and stuff are like straight, unless they're like bent sewing needles. But the suture needle look like a hook. You know, if you know pirate's hook, right? Like a pirate's hand, it was like curved like that. It curved like a fishing hook. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was thinking logistically that's they designed like that so they can get under the skin easily, because a straight needle would be very hard. So it hooked very easily. And then yeah, that's what happened. And then I've sort of been limping this whole week. I was limping worse at the start of the week, and then by the time, now it's better, and by the time this video is posted, it's going to be a lot better. Showering procedure is very interesting. So I can't get it wet for like a week until I see my doctor again. And then so I'm like, when you shower, all the water goes down. The foot is like unavoidable. So I wrap my foot around, I use cling film for food, wrap the tip of my foot, literally, and then get a plastic bag, wrap it around my ankle, get rubber bands, and hook it around my ankle like this, and then fold the plastic bags out of the way so when it goes down, it goes out. It actually works very well. So double layer, cling film my foot, and then plastic bag. And I've been sort of doing like, I call it shower yoga. It's not actually yoga, but then I call it shower yoga because I stand in a way and position myself in a way that minimizes the amount of water going into the bag, and like, yeah, at all costs where possible. So I stand on one leg, on my right leg, lean my body forward and stuff. So I don't just stand under the shower, because that just means more water directly dropping down into my left foot, my left leg. So that's been a very interesting process, shower yoga and standing one foot to shower and to wash my hair and stuff like that, to minimize the amount of water that could get in. The plastic bag, I didn't just want to purely rely on the plastic bag to keep water out. I want to also position myself in a way where the water is very minimal going down into my left leg. So yeah, and now I'm filming this video. That's where I'm at. So that's the story. Time for the reflections and things to take out of this. My face is like half shaded and like half exposed because I don't want to do this because the sun is literally right there and it's annoying me in my eyes. So I'm like half shaded. The first thing that I sort of realized that's important, how I've grown, is that I didn't like freak and panic when that happened. And it's because of all the internal work I've done and all of the work on controlling emotions and not letting it control me type thing. If this exact same incident happened even last year, I would have responded very differently. I would have been a lot more emotionally heightened and sort of being like, fuck, what the fuck, like I'm bleeding. Like eventually, I'd like to think that I would like eventually calm down and get on it and then stop the bleeding. But yeah, I don't know. I would have, I know that I would have reacted differently because last year my headspace was a lot more emotionally charged, and my head, I was in a very different state in my life. And I hadn't worked on self-esteem and actually slowing down and stuff like that. So emotional control is like important, not just in situations where I cut myself and need to be rational and being like, oh, you're bleeding, stop the blood. Because if I sat there and panicked, a lot more blood would have come out because I wouldn't have put pressure on the bleeding, and then I would have bled a lot more than I had already. So yeah, the first thing is emotional control is important, not just in circumstances like this, but I think like any sort of crisis or difficult situation in life. It's like, I'm not saying we can't feel emotions or acknowledge emotions, but there's like, I'd say that's like more appropriate to be done after, like after the bleeding stops and the stitch is like done, then I can sit back and be like, what exactly happened? And then allow space for emotions to come out then and exist then, not because, I mean, emotions of like just sitting here being like the emotional baggage associated with the event. Because had I left it when it happened and sort of let it run wild, the emotional aspect, then again, I would have bled a lot more than I did, and it wouldn't have been ideal at all. So like learning emotional control, learning to calm our nervous system and sort of leverage fight or flight or the adrenaline to our advantage. Because physiologically, the fight or flight response or the fight or flight response or the like adrenaline rush of some crisis happening or some high stress situation happening, it's our physiological response. But then mentally, we can either leverage it to survive or we can sort of be paralyzed by it. And it's about training the brain to sort of learn to use that response to take action and be proactive to deal with the problem actively instead of experiencing that and then just paralyzing in fear and then just like being like, there's nothing I can do in this situation, because there's always something we can do. There's always something we can do. You may be wondering, Lev, how do I get to the stage of having more emotional control? What can I actually do to work up to that? I think this might sound very cliche, but meditation, if it works, meditation really helps. And meditation doesn't necessarily just mean sitting there with some guided meditation in my ear and just like listening to it. Meditation for me also includes like playing guitar, going to flow state, and actually just like forgetting about the environment around me, and I'm just in flow state and self-focused on playing guitar that I sort of forget everything exists around me. Or when I'm so intensely drumming and I look at the time, I'm like, oh wow, 2 hours have passed already. And I've just so intensely focused on something that I'm like in a different realm. It feels like I'm in a different realm because I'm like, I forget about everything around me in the real world. Or I think nowadays with the advancement of technology and being indoors a lot and just there's constant advertising everywhere, and it's just there is so much information and pollution and noise going into our brains whether we realize it or not. And when we consume content, it's like consuming a meal, right? When we eat and we consume a meal, we need time for the food to digest. And then what comes out at the end? Poop, because it's things that we don't want, and we need to we need to get rid of things that we don't need. And that's why, in terms of biology, that's where poop comes in. If we eat, our body absorbs the nutrients and whatever it needs out of it, it turns the rest of the garbage into poop, and then we let it out of our system. And I feel like with our brains, we don't really see it the same way. We just constantly consume. We consume so much content, we consume so much information that our brains don't have space to really do other things, like actually process things properly. It's just that I feel like we just consume things and then it just gets stored up here, and then we don't actually process it properly, and then we just consume more and more and more and more, and then the brain's just like, I haven't even processed the things I saw from like 2 weeks ago. How the hell am I supposed to keep up with this input? And the brain's just constantly clogged. It's just constantly clogged. Imagine if us as humans, we never pooped. We never pooped. I think we would be like dead by then. Like if we keep all the poop we have since we came out the womb into this world, I think we will be dead, because we just can't keep that much. It'll probably actually be like, it will actually probably, I don't know, because I'm not a doctor, I'm assuming it will just like wreck our intestines, because that's a lot. And yeah, we don't want that in our system. But then, yeah, we don't have space to process things. So a tip would be to declutter your mind. Get away, like take breaks from content consumption and just consuming things in general, and just let your brain process things. Let it digest, let it process. And another thing I do that I find really helpful is actually do things like make videos or write or journal or draw or write lyrics or play things on drums and guitar, and then express myself creatively. That's like an outlet. It's like, yep. That's why I make videos actually. Otherwise, I think I would lose my sanity, because I have so much things up here, and then I process it. Like it's been basically a week since I cut my foot. I processed it, and now I'm letting it out in the form of video, so that I don't have to keep storing this in my head. And making videos like this is secondary reflection for me, as my therapist pointed out, and I'm like, it is. I didn't think of it like that. Yep. Because we don't want to be constantly consuming, and then we constantly act on impulse, and apparently our attention span is getting worse because everything is so like this, and then people view shorts, YouTube shorts or TikTok or whatever, like short videos, and then that's just like, our brain's just constantly going like this, fast. So, and then when something stressful happens, the emotional brain activates first. It works first, and then our logic brain follows after. When something happens, our emotion brain is like this. It goes like this. But our logic brain like chills and comes behind it. So yeah, let our brain breathe. I think that's a very helpful thing. That's a way to build emotion control, to actually declutter our brain, give our brain space to process things, actually reflect and do all that internal work, and not always be like fast, everything fast. I put the camera up high. It's a very interesting angle. Then the second point or reflection from this is that life is unpredictable, and we cannot prepare for every single thing that's going to happen. I didn't wake up on Monday. I actually had a swimming lesson that morning, and then I went home, and then I was mopping the floors of my house, did some push-ups, and I didn't think, oh, I'm gonna cut my foot on steel today. So deep that I'll need to go to hospital to get it stitched up. Like, I did not think that. I didn't think that the Monday, I didn't even think of that the Sunday. I didn't think about that at all, that, oh, I'm gonna get my foot cut on Monday. And this sort of links to the first point I made about like emotional like availability and like emotional control is we can't prepare for every single thing that's going to happen in our lives. A little bit of context is that I used to experience really bad anxiety, like social anxiety, and then I had a very what if mentality. I'm like, what if this happens? What if this happens? And then I try to make plans A, B, C, D for all of the possible things and all of the possible scenarios I could think of that might happen to me in social context. And I try to plan for every single scenario, try to consider every single variable that I could possibly conceive in my mind and prepare for that. Have a very detailed plan for that. That's what my anxiety told me to do, and that's how I lived my life. It was very counterproductive. It was extremely draining, and it didn't actually serve me because all the things I imagined in my head, a lot of them didn't happen. So all of my blueprinting actually didn't, it wasn't used. It turned out to be useless. And I think that's a part of life that we have to accept. It's not fun to accept that the uncertainty, being like, we don't know what's gonna happen, we can't predict everything, but it's also like the exciting part of life, I reckon. Now that I have controlled my social anxiety and basically don't have it anymore, I don't see life in a I need to plan for everything way, because we can't possibly plan for every single thing, but more like these are the tools I've learned on my journey. This is sort of my perspective now. These are the tools I've learned on my journey. These are the skills I have built over time from different experiences of adversity and things not working out and difficult points in my life. This is all the things I've learned. This is all the skills I picked up and continue fostering and watering so that the roots keep growing. These are all the knowledge. This is all the knowledge I've gained from all these past experiences here. And then I have a giant like armory of different tools, knowledge, skills, and things I can draw upon. I have a giant armory. And if life presents such a situation, I'd be like, well, this situation or thing isn't identical, it isn't identical to this thing I've experienced in the past, but all these tips, tricks, tools that I've gathered over the years can be applied to this same situation. And then the more that happens, the more I just strengthen my armory. And then I just like, look, I don't know what's gonna happen, but I trust that whatever happens, I know how to deal with it, or I will figure out a way to deal with it. And if it's something I don't know, then it becomes a new learning experience. And then I learn from that, and I'm like, yep, rinse out all the possible tools, resources, lessons I can from it, and then add it to my armory. And then that becomes a new weapon in my armory against this game of life and all the possible unpredictable circumstances that can happen. And the other point about this is that if we use all our energy, mental resources, our energy, our time, everything, we'll try to pour our heart and soul out into planning for every single thing. And then when something actually happens that isn't the thing we planned for, we have basically depleted all our resources. I'm speaking from personal experience, by the way, with social anxiety. We deplete all of our resources so that when this new thing happens that we are presented with over here, we're like, the fuck? And then it's bad enough that it's something we don't know, but it's even worse that we now do not have the resources to manage it or deal with it or work through it, etc., because we've exhausted our resources over here trying to prepare for everything, if that makes sense. We have limited resources, mental capacity, emotional capacity, physical energy, time. We have limited resources. So we can decide what to do with our resources. Do we just go out there and live life and experience things and learn that way? And the learn that way is actually the better way, because that's when we learn how to adapt. Or we just unfortunately get stuck in our own heads and then try to plan for everything and then deplete all our sources, and then when something happens, we don't have anything left. So, yep. I'm not saying we choose to have anxiety or choose to be like, oh, my life's so boring, I'm just gonna experience social anxiety because I'm so bored. I'm not saying that at all. It's like the cards we are dealt with in life. I didn't choose to experience social anxiety. I didn't choose to experience major depression. It sort of was part of the deal of cards that I was handed with in life. But it's what I choose to do with it. It's what I choose to do with it that counts. It's what we choose to do with it that counts. Because we can't control everything that happens in our life. We can't control all external variables, or where we're born, or the family we're in, or our environment, or our income, our area, our socioeconomic status in the area we live in. We have so many things we can't choose. We don't choose this. I mean, like character selection at the start of the game of life, where I want to choose who I am, blah, 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 blah. We don't do that. We just come into this world, be like, what is this? And we have to figure it out. Yeah. Choose where to use our resources wisely, because there is limited. Well, this is a new angle I haven't filmed out before. Enjoy the sky. It's actually quite a nice day today. That is all I have for this. Wow, this is such an interesting angle. I'm just playing with angles every time I film videos now, in different location setups. Actually, it's the same park. It's just different angles and different locations within the same park. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful and learned something from it. It is a video about emotional fitness, really, and what I've learned from my experience. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Rock on.